Hey guys, Warren with Sirens Project. Today we have an awesome opportunity to kind of do some training and also walk through how we approach different sites after disasters. We have a tree on this house here. This house has been abandoned for a while. A good friend of ours owns this house, their family does. Nobody was in here when the tree fell, but we just thought this would present an awesome opportunity to kind of walk through some of the things that we think of when we approach a site like this and how we're going to take this tree off this house without a crane. We do have a lift and a skid steer available, so those are the two things that we're going to be using today. And we'll just kind of walk through the process of doing that. So the first thing that we always do when we get to the work site is assess all of our hazards and obstacles. So we're going to do that right now. One hazard is obviously the tree on the house. You know, that's a given. That's why we're here. And then also we'll look overhead. We do have some overhead hazards up here. We'll show those a little bit later. We also want to think about overhead energized lines. We do have some across the street, but nothing within this tree removal is going to be within the 10 feet minimum approach distance that we need to adhere to, outlined by the ANSI Z133. This house does not have a service connect right now. It's been disconnected, but if this was a fresh disaster and this house did have a hookup, we would assume that that is live, and we would treat that just like a normal power line. We would locate any kind of septic tank or gas meter, water meter, that sort of thing. But thankfully, this work site is pretty free of a lot of hazards and obstacles that we would encounter, typically in a disaster zone. After we identify the hazards and everything, we're going to put a emergency preparedness response plan together, essentially. And so that's where we give everybody on the work site defined roles. So if any accident does occur, everybody has a specific duty to fulfill in the event that an accident does happen. So for this demonstration, I'm going to assume team lead. So basically that means I have responsibility of the work site, any final decisions, anything as far as what kind of cuts we're going to make, the order of operations. I have final sign off on that, even if we do all come together and talk about how we want to approach this. We have Daniel. He's going to be our 911 caller or our emergency response contact. And so basically what that means is if an accident does occur, Daniel will be calling EMS, 911, that sort of thing. Another thing that I do want to mention as far as EMS goes, we want to ensure that EMS has egress and ingress opportunity on the work site. So any kind of staging area for debris and that sort of thing cannot impede EMS response. And so we're going to keep the main drive open at all times. No debris will be positioned anywhere that would inhibit the emergency response process. Dave is going to be our first aid administrator. So basically if anything does happen, he will assess the situation and provide first aid as much as he feels comfortable until EMS arrives. And then Robert, who is operating the camera right now, is our designated equipment operator. So he will be operating the skid steer, that sort of thing. And then Thomas is going to be designated as one of our groundsmen. So what those responsibilities means, that's the primary responsibility. We can all do different things, but when it comes to an accident or what we're here to do, those take priority. Then we look at the kind of the order of operations, and we'll put an initial plan together. And anytime during this process, the plan can change. If the plan does change, we stop operations, we give up an updated job briefing, and then we'll continue. So all of this information goes on our JSA, which is our job site assessment form. Other information that goes on that is the address of the location that we're working, the address of the nearest medical facility, and then those responsibilities that I just talked about. Each volunteer is listed on that sheet with their responsibilities, and we have a sign in and sign out time, as well as all the hazards that we talked about will be listed on that sheet, and then just a brief description of the plan. And so that's kind of everything in a nutshell from the safety side of things. But this is going to be a pretty straightforward removal. This is an eastern white pine that had a little bit of root rot and it failed during a thunderstorm. and landed on this house. Basically, the plan in a nutshell is to limb this tree up, get as much weight off the house as possible, whether we take small pieces, larger pieces, you know, anything that we can handle by hand off the tree itself, working back to the roof line. The goal is to eliminate as much weight as possible. So once we eliminate that weight to the roof line, then we have the machine come in, pick the trunk up, and work it back away from the house and set it on the ground. So that's the initial plan, and we will leave the tree attached as of right now. So we'll see how much resistance the tree gives us when we try to remove it, but we typically like to keep the tree connected to the root ball just to provide some extra stability during the removal process when it comes to removing a tree off a structure. So that's the main plan. We'll get after it, and then if anything changes, we'll update. All right, guys, so we got rid of the overhead hazards that were directly above our work site with the lift. Use the lift to access the roof. Now we're just limbing it up like you would on the ground. We're gonna leave the supporting branches for last. We're gonna get the skid steer under here, over there to give it some support. Then we'll cut these, work the tip back to the roof line, and then use the skid steer to remove it. So Thomas right now is just kind of limbing up the tree, and we're tossing them over the edge as we go. We're being super careful to sound the roof before we actually step on anything, because there are some soft spots here. You can see in the back. So we're just taking our time. We're in no rush, and we'll get it done. So we worked the roof from the roof line basically to the tip. Actually, we worked from the tip back to the roof line, de-limbing it, taking as much weight off the roof as possible, being super mindful that of the fact that this is an abandoned house. It's had water intrusion for a while, so parts of the roof are really soft. So we're sounding it as we're going, make sure we got proper footing and everything. So that worked out really nice. So as you can see, the tree was all the way at the very tip of the gable there. We worked it all the way back, and it's at the roof line. Can't go any further than that because of the roof condition. So now we're gonna get back in the lift, get down, move the lift, and then Robert and the skid steer is gonna pick up the remaining weight, drive it forward and dump it on the ground. We'll buck it up and we're done. So this is just kind of one way that we approach trees on houses. There's a million different ways to do it, but as long as you're being safe, that's the most important thing. You know, obviously at a crane, you could probably do this job in like 3 cuts, maybe less, depending on the size of your crane. But if you don't have one, you got a skid steer. I mean, this is basically what you can do. You get a lot done. So this was a good situation. Single story house, low angle on the tree. I want to be dropping a blog post soon on how to calculate the force necessary to lift a tree off a house given its angle, estimated weight, and where you're actually doing the lifting from. So stay tuned for that. If you like what we're doing, just like and subscribe. It really helps our channel out a ton. We are a nonprofit, so everything is accomplished by donations, and so super grateful for this opportunity. Thank you, Thomas, for allowing us to come out here and do some training and kind of run you guys through what we end up doing. So we'll get down now, we'll do this final lift off the roof, and we'll be good to go.